The transfer portal's on fire. I think that's pretty obvious. Over 1,000 kids went in it in the first 24 hours that the window was open. And I have got 3 words on a very helpful orange Post-it here. It says informed but unprepared. Those are words from a very high-level staffer at a very high-level program that I talked to yesterday about all the goings-on. What does that mean? Informed but unprepared. If you're informed, well, what's your excuse for being unprepared? Well, here's the excuse. A lot of staffs knew this was coming. I told you this for the last month and a half. I kept banging the drum of you've never seen anything like you're about to see with the transfer portal. I wasn't just making that up. Every coach was telling me, you've never seen anything like what's about to come in the transfer portal. Well, now you see it. We've only seen the beginning. Those numbers are going to grow and grow and grow and grow. Some of those players you'll never hear from again. And they'll just be more cautionary tales of what happens when you dive into the portal because it looks like college football's playground and everyone's just hanging out in there. The portal's not a playground. Meemaw used to tell me all the time, the portal's not a playground. Some of you are going to learn the hard way. Some of you should have had Meemaw in your life. But that's for another day. Right now, everyone's got hopes and dreams and aspirations. You could be a portal flipper. You could be a portal dipper. One goes somewhere else and one stays, of course. But ill-prepared. How are you unprepared? Unprepared is the state that a lot of these programs have found themselves in. You may think it's like mission control at NASA inside the halls of Alabama or Kentucky or Nebraska or whatever. And some places they've got it down and some places they don't. And the places they don't have it down, it's not because this took them by surprise. It's quite the opposite. They knew it was coming, but it's hard to go convince your administration that you need funding for an entire new department and a department that didn't have any reason to exist 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, imagine for a second going to your chancellor or your president or your AD and saying, hey, I need about $1.5, $2 million more dollars in my budget minimum. Why do you need that? We need a college scouting department. What do you mean a college scouting department? You don't get players from college, you get them from high school, don't you? We've got a recruiting budget already. No. We want to keep the recruiting budget. In fact, we even want to fatten that up a little bit, but we also need a college scouting department because now the transfer portal is such that we have to scout all the college players and we have to be able to go get all the college players. And we also need personnel here that are specifically tasked with working the transfer portal. They're not double dipping. They're not spending part of their day in quality control. They're not a defensive GA and then in their free time, when they go home tonight, they do their portal stuff. We need people working the portal full time. Well, that costs money, and not every program was ready to allocate it. And so as a result, there are some people who really have no business working in the portal avenues who right now, until further notice, are having to work in the portal avenues. It is a madhouse behind the scenes in some of these programs. I know it looks crazy out here on the surface. It's just as crazy or even more crazy behind the scenes. So I got some names that I want to give you. We're going to do this as long as we need to, because these are the names that are popping on my radar. These are the names I'm hearing about. Jaheim Bell is one that everyone's talking about. That's a tight end that is in the portal from South Carolina. I know Brad Crawford said some things earlier today about him, I think on Twitter. He may have also written an article about it because Brad writes like 550 articles a day on a slow day. And he said what he had heard was lack of playing time, not lack of playing time, lack of production and lack of NIL opportunity. Those were 2 of the contributing factors, which on the surface makes sense because his receiving yards went down this year. He played in every game, so it's not like he was out a bunch due to injury. He's the top-rated tight end in the portal. He is a pass-catching tight end. He's not an inline blocker. To give you an idea of the level of athleticism we're talking about here, he also played 4 games at running back. So you can imagine, as we watch Dalton Kincaid out in Salt Lake City, as we watch Brock Bowers at Georgia, we're in that, hey, let's go find our Brock Bowers status for a lot of programs out there right now. And I'm not saying that Jaheim Bell is that. I am saying there are no shortage of suitors. A lot of folks were, frankly, surprised that his name was in the portal. And that's the other thing you want to gauge. See, I'm about to talk about a kid in a second where the program and the fan base wasn't as surprised that he hopped in. I think South Carolina fans were kind of surprised that Jaheim Bell hopped in. So keep an eye on that name. Dante Thornton is a name, a wide receiver, 6'5", 200 pounds. He is transferring, or at least he's in the portal, to transfer from Oregon. He came on late in the year. So more you watched Oregon down the stretch, chances are the more you saw him. He was the number 57 overall player in the class of 2021. Came in with a lot of hype. I was one who hyped him. I loved his game. I still like his game. It was a situation where he did not crack the starting rotation immediately. What happened with Oregon this year is they had some injury situations at wide receiver, and then Dante Thornton, because of those injuries, was inserted into the starting lineup and did some good things. It's not like he necessarily took over the Pac-12, but did some really good things. He could be a plug-and-play guy. It could be that you saw him scratch the surface of his potential at Oregon. You don't have a bunch of 6'5", 200-pound wide receivers out there with at least some experience and some production. So the Oregon fans weren't necessarily shocked that he went in the portal. They've had a couple of guys go in there. Justin Flo, the linebacker, went in the portal. But Dante Thornton's a name I'm keeping my eye on. And I say keeping my eye on him in a sense that I'm picturing him being plugged into the right system. You know, being married with the right quarterback, offensive coordinator. You get the drill. Next up, speaking of quarterback, Devin Leary, this one commanded a lot of attention yesterday, is in the transfer portal. Been at NC State a while. He's a 3-year starter. If you go back just a few months, guys, we talked about him on here, on this show, on the fringes of the Heisman conversation. All I did was really mention he was on the fringes. As you know, I don't do a whole lot of Heisman, even though I'm going to do a segment on the Heisman tonight on this show. But his consideration, I think, was warranted because of what NC State was in position to maybe do. Now, they ended up not doing it. He had a pec injury, and so his season was not what they hoped it would be. Still got eligibility left here. He is one of 6 ACC quarterbacks just so far in the portal. And to remind you, because all of this is brand new, what we have here is we have a 45-day window. That's the adjustment. That's the alteration that's been made from the NCAA. No longer can you just go into the portal anytime you want to. You got to jump in either this 45-day window or, and it's a big or here, or at the end of spring practice, there's another window. And so, you know, right now the talk behind the scenes in college scouting departments is, let's say we're in the market for a quarterback. I'm just going to throw some names out here. These are generic examples. This is not to lead you to believe I know something. Devin Leary is in the portal, though, so I don't have to make that up. We know that. And let's say at Pate State, I need a quarterback. And I've got Leary scouted. Let's say I got a B-plus grade on him. But for some reason, I think at Alabama, they're going to go through spring, and Ty Simpson's going to lock down the starting job, and maybe Jalen Milroe is going to go in the portal. And for my offense, I've got Milroe graded at an A-minus. Do I take Leary right now if I can get him? Or do I wait until after spring? Because that's no man's land. That is beyond the point of no return. And if I don't get a quarterback, I'm cooked. I will be fired. And we have a short leash at Pate State, as you well know. What do I do? You know, that's a conversation that's being had. Those are serious conversations that are being had right now. So anyone looking for an immediate starter at quarterback, that's him. A healthy Devin Leary is one of the better quarterbacks in the country. We'll see. Next up, Dominic Lovett. I don't think a lot of you are familiar with this name. You should be. If you watch SEC football, you probably remember. Anytime you played Missouri this year, he had his hands on the ball. 5'10", 187 pounds, can run really, really fast. He's got really good speed, got extremely good hands. One of the best pass catchers in America this year. First team All-SEC at wide receiver. That's what they're losing there. Remember, Luther Burden came in there as a true freshman this year, and all the preview magazines would have led you to believe Luther Burden's going to be the immediate plug-and-go number 1 receiver on that team. And Luther Burden was on the field, but this cat was their best wide receiver. Dominic Lovett was their best wide receiver. Now, notice the difference in body type. You got Dante Thornton over there, 6'5", 200. You got Dominic Lovett, 5'10", 187. So we're starting to see some variety of skill set enter the portal at the wide receiver position. Those hands, especially, think about your team this year. Did you struggle with drops? Did you maybe have guys who have good top-end speed, but you can't count on them to catch the ball to save their life? Well, there's a guy here who has a blend of both of those traits. And as you can imagine, the second Dominic Lovett's name went in the portal. His IDOM blew up probably. Charge that battery, Dominic. Fentrell Cypress is another name I want you to keep your eye on. This is a defensive player. He's a defensive back, actually. Currently the #1 rated player. Is it the player overall, Jesse, or is it just the corner? Okay, he's overall the #1 rated player in the portal right now. He's a corner, and he's a grad transfer, by the way, out of Virginia. Led the ACC in pass breakups. Ohio State is a major player here. I think Wilfong earlier today on 247sports.com spoke about how he's hearing a lot of smoke and hearing a lot of rumblings about Ohio State. I think Tony Grimes also went in from North Carolina while I'm speaking about highly rated corners. So already, just through 24 hours, we've got a lot of names at a lot of different positions that bear watching. You're looking at Fentrell Cypress and the slider there. The top 10 right now. Leary's #2. I just spoke about him. Jaheim Bell, the tight end there, is #3. DJ Uiagalelei is in the portal. Hudson Card, quarterback from Texas, is in the portal. Javion Cohen, a starting guard from Alabama, entered the portal. Tunmizi Adelaide, part of that big recruiting class for Texas A&M, he's in the portal. It's just getting started, guys. There is a big need for you if you want to be an informed fan to pay attention to this every day. Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure and leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.